Today, we're making a comforting black bean stew using techniques we learned from Brazilian feijoada and flavors inspired by Cantonese clay pot rice. We start with the base ingredients. Chinese cured pork belly, the Cantonese carne seca if I may. This brings concentrated umami, salinity and sweetness. A bit too much sweetness sometimes, so I like to blanch it for about 5 minutes just to rinse off the surface sugar. Chinese sausage for umami, texture, color, and a wonderful, wonderful fragrant fat. We set this aside for later. Dry shiitake for more concentrated umami and a bit of earthy note. The whole point of the recipe is to use dried or concentrated flavors to cook your beans over a long period of time, so you can use whatever you like. Make it vegetarian using just the mushrooms. Don't let the shopping stop you. On that note, dry shrimp, more umami, concentrated marine-like sweetness, and with the long cooking time, none of the marine funk. Chinese holy trinity. Once again, given the long cooking time, we'll get some background warm heat from the ginger and some savoury, subtle sweetness from the other two. Now we build our stew. Cold pan, cured pork in, we gently bring in some heat. I like to use a lot of cured pork belly, but there are no rules to this recipe except for salt management. In total, you want to aim for no more than 1.2% salt of the weight of your dry black beans. So check the back label and play with the ingredients you have. If you don't have access to an Asian supermarket, you can use guanciale, smoked pancetta, smoked bacon, endless options. Now through heat, we developed complex flavors and caramelized sweetness. But for this recipe in particular, way more importantly, we render out almost all of the fat to give us control in terms of how much fat we want in the final product. Because once we introduce the beans, the starch and the long cooking would create an emulsion for us. Not like mayonnaise emulsion, but strong enough to disperse all the flavorful, smoky, sweet fat, making it impossible to skim afterwards. Another benefit is that once we introduce our flavorsome aromatics, the fat-soluble flavors would be carried by the fat. By skimming later, even if we manage to, we're taking away those flavors. So, happy with that, we continue to build. Dry shrimp, cook them out. Once again, to concentrate that marine sweetness. And with the dry shrimp, we discard the soaking liquid. I like shrimp and I like marine funk, but even that's too strong for me. Dry shiitake, minced into bite size. And this, of course, we keep the soaking liquid. It might smell fishy with the shrimp right now, but trust me, after long cooking, you'll get none of that. Just like fish sauce. Now, the Chinese holy trinity. First, the ginger, the more resilient one, just to bring everything down closer to boiling point by releasing some moisture. Then the more delicate ones. There you go in. Cook to evaporate the water content, concentrating the background warmth and the subtle sweetness we talked about. Now, soy sauce for more salinity and a ton of umami. I'm being very stingy because I reserve my right to use a lot of Chinese sausage. Oh, the smell. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more. What the hell? We'll use less sausage. Optional Shaoxing wine for even more complexity and a bit of oxidized note. You can use dry sherry. You can skip this completely. The dish is flavorsome enough. Now, the black beans. For this recipe, you can use any bean you fancy. You can use tinned, which gives you a much shorter cooking time. You can soak them the night before, which would shorten your cooking time to closer to 40 minutes to an hour. Or you can use dry beans and simply rinse and cook them from the get-go. It'll take significantly longer, about 2.5 hours to 4 hours, depending on the desired texture. But it takes the planning away. For me, the biggest hindrance to cooking beans. It will give you a firmer bite, particularly on the skin. And with that much water-soluble umami, a lot more face time with our ingredients. Now, first up, mushroom soaking liquid. A ton of umami. And if you're using dried beans like me, way more water than you think you need. Now, if you are going the long route like me, 2 optional ingredients. Daikon, which in my opinion is dried shrimp's best friend. You can use turnip, you can even use radish. We grate them coarsely and add them to our pot. The harshness, similar to the taste when you bite into a radish as a snack, will fade with the long cooking. What you'll be left with is an incredible texture and sweetness. And feijoada, or bean stews in general, can be rich and heavy. With the grated daikon, we're getting a gentler, kinder bean stew with 1,000 points of subtle sweetness and texture. Optional ingredient number 2, coriander. The stalks in particular, with the long cooking time, you get a wonderful background herbal note, not dissimilar to the famous Persian gourmet zapsi. You'll also get a beautiful dark green hue. Yet more water. Give it a good mix. 2.5 to 4 hours. If you have a pressure cooker, 40 minutes to an hour. With 30 minutes to go, it's sausage time. Once again, cold start, we gradually bring in some heat to render out the signature, fragrant, almost rose-like fat. Now, we have a generous layer. You once again have the option to skim, but we went very aggressive in the previous round to keep this yummy fat. We crank up the heat and start browning our sausages, building even more flavors. Now, once you can see these golden bubbles, round 2, delayed aromatics, ginger, this time for some zesty freshness to balance the richness of the dish, grated for faster release. Garlic, this time for the pungency, once again cutting through the richness of our bean stew. Crushed, faster release. Minced scallion, this time for some oniony taste. With long cooking, a lot of these characteristics becomes dull. So when making long braises, it's worth at least considering a round 2 or delaying your aromatics completely. Once we have a tiny bit of fond, round 2 Shaoxing wine, you can use water to mop up everything and give us even more depth. Woohoo! Smell is incredible. Now, ready for the bean fest. Woohoo. Oh, look at this beauty. Look at that. Oh, the smell. You can smell the sweetness of the daikon. Now, we start our gentle reduction for the last 20 minutes. Now, look at that. The texture of our liquid has changed completely, not just because of the collagen from our pork, but because of nature's starch slurry. And precisely because of that, don't reduce it too much, otherwise it'll become too thick and too rich. And for this, hot sauce, scallion green, more coriander, and all the rice you can find. This is Cantonese Feijoada.